And just like that, the rich get richer, as LT Overton, former 5-star and the number 2 available defensive lineman in the transfer portal, has announced his intention to transfer from Texas A&M to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we have got to talk about it. But we also need to talk about more wins Alabama got this week, as well as preview early signing day, which is less than 24 hours away. And with that being said, let's dive into it. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. First and foremost, are you excited that LT Overton has announced he will transfer to Alabama? And then secondly, do you believe Nick Saban is going to get some big flips tomorrow? I can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all of that, let's dive into it. And before we really dive into the news cycle, some announcements need to be made. Tomorrow from 9 o'clock Central Standard Time in the morning until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, you can catch me with Kyle Henderson over on Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson as we preview and talk about the early portion of early signing day. After that, at around 10:15, 10:30, you can catch me right back here as we will be going live talking about all the chaos, all the fireworks, and I'd love to have you a part of the fun. But all those announcements out the way, let's dive into this, and what a big win this is for the Crimson Tide. It's not the only win we need to talk about before we preview early signing day, but this is massive. Whenever we talk about LT Overton, we first have got to acknowledge that this was a guy that actually reclassified and went to Texas A&M a year early. When we look at where he ranked as a high schooler, there was a portion where he was the number 1 available player in his class. After reclassifying, he remained a 5-star. That's how gifted he is. When we look at LT Overton, there's a lot of versatility to his game. However, I think whenever he gets to Alabama, he'll be at that defensive end position. Very similar to Justin Eboigbe, and with Eboigbe looking to head to the NFL, this is a massive win. One thing we talk about all the time as it relates to Alabama and the transfer portal is that Alabama's not going to bring a ton of guys in via the transfer portal, but what they will do is move with supreme purpose in the transfer portal. What I mean when I say that, Bama gets guys out the transfer portal that are kind of like the proverbial cherry on top of the team they already have. And if we go through the names, it makes sense. I mean, you're talking about Burton, you're talking about Jamison Williams, you're talking about Landon Dickerson. When we look at the guys they've gotten out the transfer portal, they come in and find success very early, and so I completely expect LT Overton to fit into that mold. Nick Saban is not going to bring someone into this very talented room if he doesn't think they can contribute. And personally, I think LT Overton is a guy that this staff wanted out of high school, and now they are over the moon that they get him now. One of the things I talk about all the time as it relates to the transfer portal is there are a few things you're looking for. Does this guy have a lot of upside? The answer is obviously yes with LT Overton. 2, do they have eligibility? Yes. Once again, the answer is yes. And 3, do they have experience? The answer is yes. So you're really hitting the trifecta with LT Overton, and he was a former 5-star that we know will fit into the defensive scheme for Alabama. So this is a massive win, and what a way for Alabama to get their transfer portal acquisitions kicked off than with a former 5-star. But now we need to talk about recruiting, because Alabama also got in a big win yesterday for Jay Ross out the state of Missouri, 4-star edge as he commits to the Crimson Tide. And this is one I'm very excited about. Personally, I think he's a little bit underrated. Whenever you turn on the film, this is a guy that plays with violent intent, and that's what I love to see from anybody who plays in the trenches, whether that's offensive line or defensive line, and we've had that conversation time and time again as it pertains to the offensive lineman that Alabama goes out and recruits. But it also fits with any of your defensive front guys, and Ross plays with a mean streak. He plays with an intensity that you can't coach. You either have that intensity, that want to, that heart, or you don't. He has it. And he also has all of the physical attributes, so this is a win I know Alabama fans are going to be very happy with. Sticking on the defensive side, let's talk about the name that I know all of you can't wait to hear about. And of course, we're talking about 5-star defensive lineman edge Edric Houston out the state of Georgia, who's currently committed to Ohio State. He was on a visit to Alabama this weekend that not only surprised Alabama fans, but it surprised Ohio State. And I have no news to break at Ohio State, but what I will be doing right now is reading some tea leaves. Let's have some fun. because Ohio State is a place that recruits at an unbelievably high level. But something's going on there. The other day, Carlin James, a 4-star defensive lineman who ranks as a composite top 300 player in the nation, was trending to Ohio State until he wasn't. He ended up at USC, and I acknowledge USC has made some hires that make us question what their defense will do and could put them in good positions for defensive recruiting because they're selling to these guys, hey, come in and be a part of the transition. But still, going from Ohio State to USC was notable to me, and now we hear Edric Houston surprising this staff and visiting Alabama. There's something we need to watch going on up at Ohio State. What that will be, I don't know, but keep your eyes on the Buckeyes. As it pertains to Alabama, we know what a phenomenal recruiter Freddie Roach is. Look, I've got to give flowers to Larry Johnson, the Ohio State defensive line coach, as a phenomenal recruiter and a fantastic coach. One of the things we do here on this channel, we keep it real. And Larry Johnson, he is a ace recruiter, ace coach for the Buckeyes. But every accolade I can give Larry Johnson, I can give to Freddie Roach, and he is an ace recruiter. He is a guy that Nick Saban sends on the trail for guys that aren't even defensive linemen. If Nick Saban wants someone, he'll send Roach, and Roach, more often than not, returns with a very, very happy Saban awaiting. So this is a battle I'm watching, especially with all this talk of what's going on at Ohio State, what could come. Edric Houston is a guy that Alabama wanted when he committed, and it came down to Ohio State and Alabama has been very successful with that Buford pipeline, something I think is helping separate the tide. But also, when we look at the production from Alabama is one of a few places in all of college football. You give one good year of film, you can go in the first round of the NFL draft, and that's not typical in college football, but it goes to speak to what Nick Saban has created and how atypical it is, how incredible what Nick Saban has created actually is, something we don't really talk about. We acknowledge without ever acknowledging the greatness of Nick Saban and the program he has helped build, because it truly is a machine right now, and this would be a huge flip. Let's go over to the offensive side of the ball, where we're going to talk about two names, both of which being running backs, one of which just recently decommitted from Arkansas, the other currently committed to Miami. And we're going to start with what could be a massive flip, as 4-star running back Kevin Riley, who ranks as a composite top 100 player in all of high school football, the number 4 running back in the nation, may be in for fireworks come tomorrow. Now, he's from the state of Alabama. He plays in Tuscaloosa County, so for the Crimson Tide, this would be keeping a very talented player home, something they would love to do, but it would also be getting a massive flip. The Alabama running back room, I have no doubt, is going to be one that's very talented, but one of the things Alabama can give you that I think is compelling to these recruits is kind of very similar to the conversation we just had about only needing 1 year. One of the biggest things we hear in the NFL draft, especially at the running back position, it's these scouts that work for these teams are finding any reason they can to devalue the running back position. And one of the main arguments we hear is usage. That, oh, so-and-so got overused in college, therefore he's a first, second round talent. We're going to take him in the third or the fourth, though. We've heard this time and time again. All of you have heard this. One of the things Alabama affords its running backs is being able to say, hey, you might not ever be the guy, but you are going to be a guy within our system. And those guys still get drafted very highly to the NFL, and they don't usually have the wear and tear that some other guys might not have. Now, certainly there are exceptions to this rule, but Alabama usually operates with a running back by committee, meaning one guy isn't getting the bulk of the carries and getting the bulk of the hits. They can spread it around, meaning once you get to the NFL, you got fresh legs under you, which is compelling for these NFL scouts, something I think Kevin Riley and them are cognizant of. They know how talented that running back room is. They're not scared of competition, which is a great sign. And two, I think they know what that talented running back room also affords him on the back end. But sticking in that running back room, we need to talk about Jaden Baugh, who just recently decommitted from Arkansas. And this, man, this is a fun film watch. Baugh lands outside the top 300 players, but I'm not exactly sure how. Because whenever you turn on his film, he does a lot of things, and he does it at a very high level. One of the things that instantly stood out to me may seem kind of boring, but it was his patience. As a guy in high school that's as talented as he is, so many times we're used to seeing running backs not letting the blocks develop. They'll just outrun their offensive lineman because in their mind, that defender's not going to catch me anyways. Well, he might not catch you at the high school level, but when you get to college, those little nuances, they'll come back to bite you. Whenever we talk about a guy like Ball, he doesn't have to learn that in college. He exemplifies that time and time and time again in his high school film. He understands being patient, letting blocks develop, and then he has got an uncanny burst to which he attacks wherever he's going to go. If he sees the gap he wants to attack, he's going to hit it and hit it ferociously. And for Alabama, that's a great thing. To have a running back with the patience, the wherewithal, and the athletic ability that Jaden Ball has. So I can't wait to see what happens here, but I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.